My sister helped her son destroy my daughter's entire future over a $250,000 scholarship. They didn't use a hammer or a knife. They used a lukewarm cup of coffee and a lie. But they forgot about the cloud. They forgot that digital ghosts never really die. I found the proof, and when I was done, $250,000 was the least of their problems. My daughter Maya breathes art. She doesn't just create it. She inhales the world in pigments and textures and exhales it onto paper. For as long as I can remember, our tiny apartment hasn't smelled of air freshener. It smelled of turpentine, graphite, and the specific, earthy scent of damp clay. I'm Clara. I'm a research archivist at the City University, which is a fancy way of saying I spend my days with dead people's letters and forgotten historical documents. My life is quiet, ordered, and catalogued. Maya's is an explosion of beautiful, chaotic color. She is everything I was taught not to be. Loud, fearless, and blindingly brilliant. And for the last 3 years, her brilliance had been funneled into one singular goal: the Atherton Fellowship. It's not just a scholarship. It's the kingmaker for young artists in America. A full ride to any art institute in the country. A solo gallery show in New York City. A $250,000 grant. And mentorship from literal legends. It's the kind of opportunity that doesn't just change a life. It defines one. Maya wanted it more than she wanted air. Her portfolio was her soul, bound in black leather. It wasn't just a collection of her best work. It was a narrative. Each piece was a chapter of her life. There was the charcoal series, Suburban Ghosts, where she sketched the empty houses in our old neighborhood, capturing the loneliness in the lines of peeling paint and overgrown yards. There was the oil painting of my hands, weathered and stained with ink, which she titled The Archivist, making my boring job look like some sacred ancient craft. Her crown jewel, the one she'd spent a year on, was a massive mixed-media piece called Inheritance. It was a portrait of herself, but her face was constructed from tiny, hand-cut fragments of my old letters. Her father's sheet music. He passed when she was 6. And my mother's floral wallpaper. It was a staggering, deeply personal work of art that spoke of memory, loss, and the pieces of people we carry with us. To touch the portfolio was to hold 17 years of her heart in your hands. The day the email arrived, the air in our apartment crackled. Dear Ms. Maya Jensen, the Atherton Committee is pleased to inform you that you are one of 10 national finalists. I think I screamed louder than she did. We danced around the living room, knocking over a stack of books and laughing until we cried. She was in. She had a real shot. That weekend, we went to my mother's house for the obligatory Sunday dinner. It was the same house I grew up in, a place so saturated with unspoken rules and resentments that the air itself felt heavy. My sister Jessica was there with her husband, Mark, and their son Leo. Jessica was 2 years older than me, and she was the designated artist of our generation. Or she was supposed to be. She'd gone to a decent state college for graphic design, met Mark, a man whose bank account was more impressive than his personality, and settled into a life of pristine suburban ennui. She hadn't picked up a real paintbrush in 15 years, but she still wore the title of the creative one, like a family heirloom. Her son, Leo, was also an artist. Leo was technically skilled, meticulous, and completely devoid of an original idea. His work was beautiful, sterile, and passionless. He could replicate a photograph with breathtaking precision, but he couldn't create an emotion to save his life. And of course, he had also applied for the Atherton. When Maya shared her news, the reactions were perfectly, painfully predictable. My mother, Eleanor, gave a tight, watery smile. "Oh, darling, that's wonderful. Just don't get your hopes too high. It's very competitive." Jessica's face was a masterclass in feigned enthusiasm. "Oh my God, Maya! That's amazing. We're so proud of you," she chirped, while her eyes, cold and sharp, darted over to Leo. "Leo made it to the second round," she added, a little too quickly. "They said his photorealism was some of the best they'd seen from a student." Leo just shrugged, staring at his phone. Mark grunted his approval. Throughout the dinner, a low-grade tension hummed beneath the surface. Jessica kept making little digs, coated in sugar. "It must be so nice to have all that time to be expressive, Maya. When you have a family, you have to be more practical. Or, my favorite, I just hope the judges appreciate your raw style. It's very emotional. Sometimes they prefer more technical discipline, you know?" She was planting seeds of doubt, watering them with her own bitterness. I watched her, and I felt that old familiar knot tighten in my stomach. The one that always appeared when Jessica started to feel threatened. I told myself I was being paranoid. I told myself she wouldn't. I was a fool. The final portfolio had to be hand-delivered to the regional committee office downtown by 5 p.m. on a Friday. Maya was a wreck of nerves and excitement. She'd triple-checked every piece, polished the leather case, and wrapped the entire thing in a protective plastic sleeve. Jessica had insisted, absolutely insisted, that we all go for a good luck breakfast at her house. "For moral support," she'd sung over the phone. "Leo has to drop his off too. It'll be a fun family affair." Against my better judgment, I agreed. We drove to her sterile, gray and white McMansion. The breakfast was tense. The air was thick with fake smiles, and the smell of burnt toast. Jessica fussed over Leo straightening his collar, reminding him to speak clearly to the judges, while offering Maya nothing but platitudes. "You'll do great, sweetie," she'd said, without making eye contact. Maya needed to use the restroom. She hesitated, holding her portfolio like a shield. "Just leave it here by the door, honey," Jessica said, gesturing to a spot in the foyer. "No one will touch it." Maya, trusting her aunt, carefully set the case down and went upstairs. It was out of my direct line of sight for maybe 3 minutes. 3 minutes. That's all it took to detonate a future. We left in a flurry of goodbyes. I hugged Maya at the curb of the Atherton building. "I'm so proud of you, no matter what happens," I told her. She smiled, her face alight with hope. I watched her walk through the big glass doors, portfolio in hand, and drove away feeling a sense of peace I hadn't felt in years. My phone rang an hour later. It was Maya. She wasn't crying. She was making a sound I'd never heard before, a thin, high-pitched wail of pure shock, like a wounded animal. "Mom!" she choked out. "Mom, you have to come back. Something's wrong." When I got there, a kind-faced administrator was leading her out of the office. Maya was ghostly pale, trembling so hard her teeth were chattering. She was holding the portfolio case open, and I saw it. Her soul, drowned. A huge, dark, ugly stain had soaked through the leather, warping the board and seeping into the pages. It smelled faintly of coffee. Her charcoal sketches were hopelessly smeared. The ink on my letters had bled into an illegible mess. And the centerpiece, inheritance, was ruined. A giant brown watermark obliterated her face. Her father's music, my mother's wallpaper, my words, all of it was a blurred, heartbreaking disaster. It looked like someone had wept coffee all over her history. "It was an accident," the administrator said gently. "Her cousin must have spilled something at breakfast. She just didn't notice until she opened it here. We're so sorry." Maya just stood there, mute, staring at the wreckage of her dreams. And in that moment, looking at the precise contained nature of the spill, not a splash, but a deliberate pour, I knew. It was no accident. It was an execution. And my sister had been the executioner. There's a specific kind of quiet that follows a catastrophe. It's not peace. It's the sound of a vacuum, of all the air being sucked out of a room. That was our car ride home. Maya sat in the passenger seat, not crying, just staring out the window, her ruined portfolio on her lap, like a dead child. The silence was so loud it hurt my ears. I didn't push. I didn't probe. I just drove, my knuckles white on the steering wheel, my mind a furious silent storm. People talk about red flags, but in my family, they weren't flags. They were threads, woven so subtly into the fabric of our lives that you wouldn't notice them unless you started pulling. And my sister, Jessica, had been pulling them my whole life. I was the quiet one, the bookish one. Jessica was the star, the performer. In our childhood, she wasn't just the older sister. She was the sun, and I was expected to be a pale, little moon, content to orbit and reflect her light. If I got an A on a test, she'd get an A+ the next week, and my mother would say, "See? Jessica just has that natural academic flair." If I joined the track team and won a race, Jessica would suddenly develop a mysterious knee injury that required everyone's sympathy and attention for a month. Her weapon of choice was always the accident. I was 12 when I built a diorama of the solar system for the school science fair. I'd spent weeks on it, meticulously painting the planets, rigging a little light for the sun. The night before it was due, Jessica was helping me carry it to the car. She tripped on a perfectly flat surface. The whole thing shattered. "Oh, I'm so clumsy," she'd wailed, her eyes wide with fake horror. My mother rushed to comfort her while I stood there with papier-mâché Mars crushed under my shoe. My dad just sighed and said, "Well, these things happen." I got a C for an incomplete project. Jessica won second place for her project on rock erosion. When I was 16, I fell in love for the first time. His name was Daniel, and he wrote me poetry. It was cheesy, earnest, teenage poetry, and I kept it in a locked box under my bed. One afternoon, I came home to find Jessica and her friends sitting in a circle in her room, howling with laughter. She'd picked the lock. She was reading my poems aloud, doing a dramatic, mocking interpretation of Daniel's words. When I confronted her, she just shrugged. "I thought it was a joke. It was so over the top. I didn't think it was real. You're so sensitive, Clara." My mother's response? "Well, you shouldn't write things you'd be embarrassed for people to read." The blame, as always, was deflected back onto me. It was 1,000 tiny cuts. She'd borrow a textbook I needed for a final exam and forget to return it. She'd accidentally shrink my favorite sweater in the wash. She'd tell a boy I liked that I had a weird obsession with collecting toenail clippings, a lie so bizarrely specific it was almost genius. And every single time, it was my fault. I was too sensitive, too dramatic, too disorganized, too trusting. I was the problem. Jessica was just Jessica. Passionate, a little clumsy, full of life. I thought I'd escaped it. I went to college out of state. I built my own quiet, stable life. I had Maya, and I poured all the encouragement I never received into her. I thought distance and time had created a ceasefire. I thought that maybe, just maybe, she had grown up. But seeing that ruined portfolio, I understood. She hadn't changed at all. The stakes had just gotten higher. It wasn't about a science fair ribbon or a teenage crush anymore. It was about $250,000 and a future she felt was rightfully hers. Or at least, her son's. She hadn't just tripped. She had sabotaged my daughter with the same casual cruelty she had used on me for 30 years. Back in our apartment, Maya finally broke. She curled up on her bed and sobbed, a deep, ragged sound that seemed to tear right through me. I sat with her, rubbing her back, murmuring useless things. "It's okay," I said, knowing it wasn't. "We'll figure it out," I said, having no idea how. Late that night, after she'd finally cried herself to sleep, I sat in the living room, surrounded by the ghosts of Maya's art. Her sketches were taped to the walls. Little sculptures sat on the bookshelves. The whole apartment was a shrine to her talent. My quiet, orderly world, filled with her magnificent chaos. And a rage, so cold and clear it felt like ice water in my veins, began to solidify. This wasn't just a spilled drink. This was a pattern. This was a crime scene. And criminals, no matter how clever, always leave evidence. I started thinking, how did it happen? Who saw? Mark was in the kitchen. My mother was fussing over the table settings. Jessica was hovering. And Leo? Where was Leo? I remembered him sitting on the stairs near the foyer, fiddling with his tablet. Always on that tablet. He was supposed to be a digital artist, always documenting, always recording. A horrible, brilliant idea began to form in my mind. Jessica had set up a shared family cloud drive years ago, a place for sharing memories, holiday photos, birthday videos, the usual. We all had access. It was mostly filled with pictures of Leo, winning things. I hadn't logged in for months. On a desperate hunch, I opened my laptop, my fingers trembling slightly. I logged into the ridiculously named Markanjas Adventures drive. Nothing. The main folders were clean. Just the usual curated perfection of Jessica's life. But archivists know things. We know that deletion is rarely absolute. There's always a ghost in the machine. I navigated to the trash folder. It's where deleted files go to wait for their final execution. Most people forget it exists. My heart hammered against my ribs. The folder wasn't empty. There were a few dozen files, blurry photos, duplicates, junk, and one video file uploaded and deleted that morning. The timestamp was 9:14 a.m., right when Maya was in the bathroom. The file name was IMG 7894 P4. My breath hitched. With a click that felt like detonating a bomb, I hit Restore. The file moved back into the main drive. I clicked play. The video was shaky, clearly filmed on a tablet. It was aimed down from the perspective of the stairs. You could see the corner of the dining room, and right in the center of the frame, Maya's black leather portfolio case. It was open. Maya must have unzipped it to check on it one last time before leaving it. Then, I heard my sister's voice, a conspiratorial whisper. "Is she still in the bathroom?" Leo's voice, higher-pitched and nervous, mumbled, "I think so." "Okay, quickly," Jessica hissed. "Just a little bit. Make it look like a stumble. On the edge. Right there. Go!" The camera wobbled as Leo stood up. A pair of sneakers came into the frame. Then a hand holding a mug of coffee. The hand tilted. The coffee didn't splash. It poured, a steady, deliberate stream, right onto the inheritance piece. It pooled for a second before sinking in, a dark stain spreading like a disease. "Perfect," Jessica whispered. "Okay, stop recording. Delete it. Now." The video ended. I sat there, frozen, the blue light of the laptop screen illuminating my face. The silence in the apartment was gone. Now, it was filled with the sound of my sister's voice, condemning herself. They filmed it. And the arrogant, foolish boy had deleted it, thinking that was enough. He didn't know about the trash folder. He didn't know about me. I wasn't a sensitive little sister anymore. I was an archivist. And I had just found the primary source document of their crime. I saved the file to 3 separate hard drives before I even took my next breath. Then, I picked up my phone. I wasn't going to call the police. Not yet. First, I was going to call the Atherton Fellowship. And I was going to burn my sister's world to the ground. My hands were perfectly steady as I dialed the number for the Atherton Foundation. I found it in the fine print of the finalist email. I asked for the head of the selection committee, a woman named Dr. Al-Jamil. Her assistant was professionally skeptical until I said 5 words. "It's about a breach of ethics." Dr. Al-Jamil had a voice that was calm, precise, and radiated authority. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I spoke with the detached clarity of an archivist presenting a finding. "Dr. Al-Jamil, my name is Clara Jensen. My daughter, Maya, is a finalist. She arrived today to submit her portfolio and discovered it had been irreparably damaged." "Yes, Miss Jensen," she said, her voice softening with sympathy. "Our administrator informed me. A terrible accident. We are so very sorry for your daughters." "It wasn't an accident," I interrupted, my voice as flat and hard as slate. "It was an act of deliberate sabotage by another finalist's parent. And I have video evidence." There was a profound silence on the other end of the line. The kind of silence that means you have someone's complete and undivided attention. "I see," she said finally, the sympathy in her voice replaced by something much colder. "That is a very serious accusation." "I understand," I said. "Which is why I have the video file ready to send to you. It was filmed by the other finalist, Leo Miller, at the direction of his mother, Jessica Miller. The video shows them intentionally pouring coffee onto my daughter's work." I could hear the faint sound of her typing, "Send it to my private email address," she said, her voice all business now. "I will review it immediately. Please do not share this with anyone else for the time being. The Foundation has a zero-tolerance policy for this kind of behavior. We will handle this internally first. Can I count on your discretion?" "For now," I said. "My only concern is for my daughter. The work she spent years on is destroyed. Is there anything that can be done?" "Let me review the evidence," she said. "I will be in touch within 24 hours. I hung up and immediately emailed the video file. The subject line was simple: "Evidence regarding Maya Jensen's portfolio." I felt a grim, dark satisfaction as I hit send. The first domino had fallen. Next, I called my mother. She answered on the second ring, her voice cloying with concern. "Clara, honey, I just heard from Jessica. Oh, that poor Maya. I feel just awful about what happened. Such a clumsy spill." "It wasn't a spill, Mom," I said. "Now don't start," she said, her voice instantly defensive. "Jessica feels terrible. Leo is beside himself with guilt. It was an accident. You know how those kids are." "I know exactly how they are," I said. "I have a video of Jessica telling Leo to pour the coffee on Maya's art. I have a video of him doing it." The line went dead quiet. I could picture her face, the slack-jawed shock, the dawning horror. But not horror for Maya. Horror for the exposure, the mess. "Clara, what are you saying?" she whispered. "I'm saying Jessica and Leo destroyed Maya's portfolio on purpose, and I sent the video to the Atherton Foundation." A strangled gasp. "You what? Why would you do that? You're supposed to handle things in the family. You'll ruin that boy's life. He's just a child." "He's 17, Mom. And he followed his mother's instructions to commit an act of vandalism that could cost my daughter her entire future. This isn't a broken diorama. This isn't a stolen diary. This is a federal wire fraud level crime in the art world. And you want me to handle it in the family? You are always so dramatic, always making things difficult," she hissed, snapping right back into her old role as Jessica's defender. "Your sister is under a lot of pressure. Mark is very demanding about Leo's success. You don't understand." "Oh, I understand perfectly," I said, my voice dropping to a near whisper. "I understand that you have enabled her my entire life. You have taught her that there are no consequences for her actions. Well, class is in session, Mom. And this time, she doesn't get to cheat on the final exam." "You will tear this family apart," she shrieked. "What family?" I asked, and the question hung in the air, heavy and real. "The one where you watch one grandchild's future get set on fire to protect the other's ego? That family? I think it's already been torn. You just chose which side you were on a long time ago." I hung up before she could respond. My heart was pounding, but my mind was clear. The final call was to Jessica. It was time. She answered with a sigh, as if I were a telemarketer bothering her. "Clara, I know you're upset, but I swear it was an accident. Leo is just beside himself." "Stop lying, Jessica," I said. There was no heat in my voice. It was arctic. "Excuse me. I saw the video." The silence that followed was different from the others. It was the silence of a cornered animal. It was pure, distilled panic. What video?" she stammered. "The one Leo filmed on his tablet this morning? The one where you tell him to pour coffee on Maya's portfolio. The one he deleted, but not permanently enough. The one I now have saved in 6 different places. That video." I heard a sharp intake of breath, then a choked sob. The mask shattered. The real Jessica was there, sniveling and afraid. "You can't," she whispered. "Clara, you can't. Mark will kill me. He will literally kill me. His entire reputation is tied up in Leo's success. You should have thought of that before you decided to play God with my daughter's life," I said. "You should have thought about what it would do to Maya." "It's just some art," she cried, reverting to the classic defense. "She can make more. It's not a big deal. It was her future. It was her heart. It was 3 years of her life, and you destroyed it for what? So your passionless little copy machine could have a better shot? Because you couldn't stand to see my daughter, succeed in a way you never could? You were always so jealous of me," she spat, a wild, desperate attempt to flip the narrative. I laughed. A dry, humorless sound. "Jealous? Jessica, I have spent my entire life cleaning up the messes you made. I'm not jealous. I'm just done. I've sent the video to the Atherton committee. I've told Mom. I suggest you have a very, very honest conversation with Mark before he hears it from someone else. Goodbye." I ended the call and blocked her number. Then, I blocked my mother's. The house was quiet again, but this time, it wasn't a vacuum. It was the calm after the bomb had gone off. I walked into Maya's room. She was awake, sitting up in bed, looking at her phone. She looked up at me, her eyes red-rimmed and hollow. "Aunt Jessica posted a picture on Instagram," she said, her voice flat. "It's of Leo, holding his acceptance letter to the Pratt Institute. The caption says, 'So proud of my brilliant son. The future is bright. Her Atherton finalist. After hard work pays off.'" I sat on the edge of her bed and took the phone from her hands. I looked at the picture. Jessica's smug, smiling face next to a bewildered-looking Leo. The hypocrisy was so breathtaking it was almost sublime. "Maya," I said gently, "they filmed it." She looked at me confused. "Filmed what?" "They filmed themselves destroying your portfolio. I found the video." Her eyes widened, and for the first time since it happened, a flicker of something other than despair appeared in them. It was fire. "Show me," she whispered. I pulled out my laptop and I showed her. She watched the 30-second clip without a word, her expression hardening from disbelief to fury, to a kind of cold, steely resolve I had never seen in her before. When it was over, she looked at me. "What did you do with it?" she asked, her voice low and steady. "I sent it to the committee," I said, and I told Grandma and Jessica that I did. She was silent for a long moment. Then she nodded, a single, sharp gesture. "Good," she said. It was the same word Grace used in the original story, the same chilling, beautiful finality. "Good. Now what?" "Now," I said, closing the laptop, "we wait for the world to catch up to the truth. The fallout was not immediate. It was a slow-motion car crash, a series of aftershocks that rippled through our fractured family for days. The first tremor came from Dr. Al-Jamil. She called me the next afternoon. Her voice was grave. "Ms. Jensen, I have reviewed the video. The committee has reviewed the video. We are, to put it mildly, appalled." She took a breath. "The Atherton Foundation considers academic integrity to be our most sacred principle. What we witnessed on that video is a profound and deliberate violation of that principle. Leo Miller has been officially disqualified from this year's fellowship competition, and he has been permanently barred from all future Atherton-sponsored events and competitions." I felt a surge of grim validation, but it was hollow. "What about Maya?" The committee met for 3 hours this morning to discuss her case. Dr. Al-Jamil continued. What was done to her is unprecedented. Her physical portfolio, the primary basis for final judging, has been destroyed. However, her initial digital submission was extraordinary. And frankly, her character in the face of this assault has been remarkable. What does that mean? I asked, my heart in my throat. It means we are making an exception. We are officially granting Maya a 2-week extension. We have asked her to resubmit her portfolio entirely in a digital format. She can use high-resolution photographs of any work that survived, scans, and she may include up to 3 new digital pieces, if she chooses. We know it won't be the same as the originals, but we want to give her the chance to compete on the merits of her vision, not the tragedy of her circumstance. Can she do that? I looked toward Maya's room, where she'd been listlessly sketching in a notepad for hours. She's an artist, I said. She'll do it. When I told Maya, the first real spark of life returned to her eyes. It wasn't joy. It was a challenge. 2 weeks? She said, a wry smile touching her lips. Okay, let's get to work. For the next 14 days, our apartment transformed into a digital war room. I borrowed a high-end camera and lighting kit from the university's media lab. Maya worked with a feverish intensity I'd never seen. She photographed the surviving pieces, using light and shadow to bring out details even the originals hadn't shown. For the ruined inheritance, she did something genius. She photographed the damaged piece itself, the blurred ink, the coffee-stained paper, and then, using a digital tablet, she began to paint over it, weaving the destruction into a new narrative. She turned the ugly brown stain into the shadow of a tree, its branches reaching across her face. She turned the smeared charcoal into a swirling galaxy. She called the new piece The Stain. It was a masterpiece born from ashes. Meanwhile, the shock waves were hitting Jessica's perfect life. Mark, her husband, apparently did not take the news well. I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. It was my father. He and my mother had been on a cruise, blissfully unaware. "Clara, what in God's name is going on?" he said, his voice ragged with stress. "Your mother is a mess. We just got a call from Mark. He's talking about lawyers. He said you accused Leo of cheating?" "I didn't accuse him of anything, Dad," I said calmly. I sent the Atherton committee a video of him and Jessica destroying Maya's property. They drew their own conclusions. And so did Mark, apparently. "He said Pratt rescinded Leo's acceptance," my dad whispered. "The Atherton Foundation called them. They told them everything. Mark's business partners are on the board at Pratt. This is a nightmare, Clara. You have to retract it. Tell them you were mistaken. Tell them you overreacted." "Overreacted?" I repeated, the word tasting like poison. "Dad, listen to me. Your daughter, Jessica, orchestrated a crime. Your grandson, Leo, carried it out. Your other granddaughter, Maya, was the victim. And you are calling me, asking me to lie to protect the people who did this? Have you even asked how Maya is?" There was a telling silence. "Your mother says Jessica was just trying to help her son." "I have to go, Dad," I said, my voice shaking with a rage I hadn't let myself feel until now. "I have to go help my daughter rebuild the future. Your other daughter tried to burn to the ground." I hung up. The social media campaign came next. Jessica, in a masterstroke of manipulative genius, took to Facebook. She posted a long, tearful screed, full of vague allusions and wounded pride. Sometimes in a competitive family, emotions run high and terrible accidents happen, she wrote. It's heartbreaking when a misunderstanding is twisted into a malicious lie by someone with a long history of jealousy and instability. All we can do is pray for healing and hope that the truth comes out. We are so proud of our son Leo, who has handled this vicious, unfounded attack with incredible grace. The comments flooded in from her army of suburban sycophants. We're here for you, Jess. I know what a good heart you have. It's sad when family turns on you. My Aunt Carol even chimed in. Clara was always the dramatic one. I read the post aloud to Maya. She just stared at the screen, her expression unreadable. She's calling me a liar, Maya said softly. The whole world thinks I'm a liar or you're crazy. I looked at her, then back at the screen. Not the whole world, I said. Just her little corner of it. And we have something she doesn't. What? The truth. I paused, my finger hovering over the share button. The Atherton Committee asked for my discretion. They handled their end. They never said I couldn't handle mine. Are you okay with this? I asked her. Once it's out there forever. Maya looked at the new piece on her computer screen. Her face, intertwined with the coffee stain, defiant and beautiful. She looked back at me, and her eyes were clear. Post it, she said. So I did. I shared Jessica's post, and I wrote a simple caption above it. My sister is right. The truth should come out. Here is a video of the terrible accident she mentions. It was taken by her son, Leo, this morning as they deliberately destroyed my 17-year-old daughter's art scholarship portfolio. She said, no one would believe me. I believe this video speaks for itself. And then I attached the file. It was like dropping a match into a fireworks factory. The explosion was instantaneous and spectacular. Within an hour, it had hundreds of shares. The same people who had been offering Jessica their prayers were now tagging her, expressing their horror and disgust. OMG, Jessica! Is this real? This is monstrous. I can't believe I defended you. You filmed it? And your son did it? My Aunt Carol deleted her comment. A cousin I hadn't spoken to in years messaged me. I am so sorry. I always knew she was like that. The phone started ringing. It was Mark. I let it go to voicemail. He didn't yell. His voice was terrifyingly calm. Clara, you have made a grave mistake. You will be hearing from my lawyer. But there was fear in his voice. The fear of a man whose carefully constructed world of prestige and influence was cracking at the foundation. That evening, Maya and I sat on the couch, watching the view count on the video climb into the thousands. She was quiet for a long time. Then she leaned her head on my shoulder. Thank you, she whispered. For what? I asked. I blew up our family. No, she said, her voice firm. You stood up for me. No one's ever done that before. Not really. A week later, Maya submitted her new digital portfolio. 2 days after that, the winners of the Atherton Fellowship were announced. She didn't win the top prize. A brilliant sculptor from Oregon got that. For a moment, my heart sank, but then I kept reading. In addition, the committee has chosen to award a special, unprecedented Chairman's Grant for Artistic Resilience of $100,000 to another finalist, Miss Maya Jensen. Her work, especially her powerful new piece, The Stain, demonstrates a maturity and vision that transcends competition. We are honored to support her journey. Maya read the email over my shoulder. She didn't scream or cry. She just let out a long, slow breath, like she'd been holding it for her entire life. She looked at me and smiled. A real smile. It was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen. We didn't get the whole $250,000. We didn't get the New York show. But we got something better. We got justice. We got her future back. And I learned that sometimes you have to burn down the village to save your child. The question that lingers isn't about what I did, but what comes next. A family isn't a building that can be renovated after a fire. It's a living thing, and I'm not sure ours can survive these burns. My parents won't speak to me. They left a voicemail saying I had disgraced the family name. Jessica and Mark are reportedly in marriage counseling. Leo, I heard, is taking a gap year and has deactivated all his social media. The silence from their side of the world is deafening. Some people, strangers on the internet, a few distant relatives, have told me I went too far, that I should have handled it privately, that I was vengeful, that I enjoyed my sister's downfall. Maybe they're right. There was a cold, hard part of me that felt a grim satisfaction watching her carefully curated world crumble. It was the 16-year-old me, watching her read my poems aloud, finally getting a voice. It was the 12-year-old me, watching my solar system shatter, finally getting to see gravity take its course. But then I look at Maya. She's different now. She stands taller. The hollowed-out look in her eyes has been replaced by a focused fire. She's sketching plans for her new life at the art institute of her choice, using the grant money to rent a small studio space nearby. She's creating with a ferocity she didn't have before. The pain of the betrayal is still there, I know. It shows up in the shadows of her work. But it doesn't own her. She owns it. She took the ugliest thing that ever happened to her, and she made it into art. That is her power. My choice was this. I could have swallowed the poison one more time, taught my daughter that her pain was less important than family harmony, that her talent was a threat, that her voice should be quiet. I could have perpetuated the cycle of abuse that I grew up in. Or I could burn the whole rotten structure to the ground and see what, if anything, grew back in its place. I chose the fire. I chose my daughter. It's easy to judge from the outside. It's easy to talk about forgiveness and moving on. But forgiveness is a privilege, not an obligation. And my priority is no longer to keep the peace in a family that was never peaceful to begin with. My priority is to protect the brilliant, resilient, extraordinary young woman who is currently humming in the next room, turning her pain into beauty. They tried to erase her story. Instead, I helped her write a new one, in ink that will never run. So here's my question for you. When you're faced with a choice between protecting the perpetrators for the sake of family and defending the victim at the cost of everything, what do you do? Did I do the right thing, or did I become a monster to fight one? Let me know what you think in the comments. And if you believe in the power of fighting back, of telling your own story, make sure you subscribe, because there are a lot more ghosts in the archives waiting for their stories to be told.